sold it to me. This is real life, it's reality. It's not immaculate. That's fine, right? You know, this is my kitchen. Move all that shit behind me. Mass. By the way, I haven't had a drink yet. I just sound a bit slurry sometimes. Christ. My oven glove in the shape of a moose's head. So I'm just taking my meds, my early supper. Ooh, look at my giant hands. That's not my dinner. I'm going to have dinner after this, okay? An aperitif, if you will. So I'll just take you on a little tour of these meds. Tiny one, that's bisoprolol. That's for a benign cardiac arrhythmia that I got from taking too much ephedrine, which is a diet pill that I used to take to stay skinny. I take 2 of these, amitriptyline, which is an antidepressant, and I take 100 milligrams of that a night, related to my shoulder and my thoracic spine. But I don't really think it does anything. From playing the violin so much as a kid, spending a lot of time sitting like this, spasms that had gradually over the years kind of hardened into this horrible mass. So I had some steroid injections right into my neck, which strangely were quite pleasant. Now I was like, oh, this doesn't really work, nothing's happened. Then a few days later, it was as if I'd been carrying around the world on my shoulders, not metaphorically, quite literally. And then suddenly I wasn't anymore. Well, it's been probably over a year now, so I'm really pleased with that. Codeine, which has been my friend for many years. I was dating a guy whose dad was a GP, asked his dad for some painkillers, and he was sent back up with 2 of these bad boys. And I took those and I thought, wow, these are the best things I've ever had. My headache disappeared. So there was just a supply of them kicking around in the house, and it wasn't really anyone's fault. I didn't know that they were addictive, and I didn't think to check, even though I was a grown-up adult person, because I was not grown-up adult in my brain yet. So I used to buy them online, took more and more and more, figured out they actually make you feel quite nice. It just got a bit out of hand, really. And then I realised that if I didn't take them, I felt really awful. Because they're opiate-based, like morphine or heroin. Not on the same scale as heroin, not even in the same ballpark. But they can be a gateway. I used to sit around with like cold compresses on me. I had those bean bags you put in the microwave and then you wear them. Every possible thing to try and relieve the pain. If it was in a spasm, as if someone was clawing your face with something really sharp, it could go on for a whole day. And these are the only things that touched it. So these are 30 milligrams of codeine. The ones you get over the counter on Boots are 8 milligrams of codeine per tablet. So I was taking 20 or 30 of those a day, and they have paracetamol in them as well. Like a normal dose of paracetamol. So that's 20 or 30 paracetamol a day, like an overdose amount every day. You know, I had to do a tour of pharmacies in my local area because I was so worried that they would find me out somehow, and then they wouldn't sell me that box. And this was round doing work and whatever else. And sometimes the people in the chemist would look at me funny, like they'd clocked me. So I would put on a funny voice or do my hair different or wear glasses. Ridiculous, comedic things to get my fix of something you could get over the counter in Boots. And then I found out there's this cough medicine, Pulmo Bailey, that no one else in the world takes. And you just get the codeine, there's no paracetamol, so that became quite alluring for me because I was shitting myself. Well, I did actually say to a GP once, I'm taking a lot of over-the-counter Codeine, how can I stop? And they just said, just reduce it. Okay, yeah, I'll just reduce it. And in the end, I did get really, really desperate, and I went to them and I just said, look, I need help with this. And they sent me to a heroin clinic. I was taking this because I had physical pain and also emotional pain. Lots of people are addicted to pain meds for their entire lives because they have pain. So because I wasn't giving any other options, you do get to a point where you're a bit desperate. And if you find something that makes you feel good, hell yeah, you're going to take it. And it was the wrong thing to do. But it is what it is. So anyway, I got sent to a heroin clinic, and they try and make it not dirty. And it just is. And I don't mean dirty as in, no, you would go around and touch the surfaces and it's dirty. I mean dirty in the truest sense of the word, because I have worked in a substance misuse service and I have seen the reasons why people are taking drugs in the first place. Like some who were children and their parents who were addicts injected them with heroin to keep them quiet. No one's going in there for a good reason. No one's going in there because they want to be there. They gave me buprenorphine. You're supposed to take it for help with withdrawal. So you would take it and reduce it over the course of about 2 weeks. They gave me a very low dose, but then they just kept me on it for over a year. When I went in, they all just kept saying, oh, because you've got a job, so don't try and reduce it because you'll feel bad. And I had some CBT, which really didn't help, didn't make sense to me, didn't help me at all. And I ended up regretting ever asking my GP for help, which is really sad. My God, their job must be stressful because they just don't get enough time with you. When I go in there, I just sound loopy. This is not an anti-NHS thing whatsoever. I'm just never a typical case. There's always some bloody ridiculous story attached to everything. All this from just me going, oh look, I'm taking my meds now. 24 hours in, I felt fine. Another 24 hours after that, I was pretty much ready to kill myself. I didn't sleep for the entire 2 weeks. I didn't eat for the first 3 days. I didn't even really drink for the first couple of days. Nitol and all the other, over-the-counter sleep meds. I took every single one of them, 5 or 6 at a time, and I just felt worse because I don't know if you've ever experienced when you take something like Nitol and then you don't go to sleep, it's like the worst feeling of being strung out. I just wanted it to be over now, and it wasn't over, it dragged on. Whereas heroin gets out of your system pretty quickly, buprenorphine, especially after a year of that building up in your system, and then when you're trying to get rid of it, it takes much longer. I just thought the world was going to cave in. It's so difficult to describe, and I can remember the feeling even now, dripping with sweat. I lost loads and loads of weight and I looked bloody awful. I feel quite upset actually talking about it because it makes me really angry. I was so vulnerable at the time, and I know actually you can, if you want to, you can pay to go and be put under general anaesthetic to be given a drug which forcibly removes the buprenorphine or the codeine or whatever it is from the receptors in your brain, which puts you through a very, very quick withdrawal, which would be horrific if you were awake. And if you can afford it, you can do it. Going through that alone and then coming out the other side, it's only been recently that I've ever talked about it. Yes, I can own up to the fact that I took more than I should have done. I have addictive behaviours. It's part of my illness. It's part of me, who I am. We are one and the same. Well, it's not a nice feeling. Because I'd just gone through that horrible withdrawal and I did it on my own, I felt like I had achieved something, and I wrote my first album just at home on my own. Oh, drugs are bad. I really want to try and have control over those bits of me that perhaps have taken over in the past, and I want to be able to use them when I need them, like when I want to be creative and I want to have ideas. I've got a head full of ideas all the time, and a lot of those ideas are really good, so I want to be able to access that. Now we've done the codeine saga, here's the last drug that I'm taking, and that's called pregabalin. I'm taking this at the behest of last but one psychiatrist. He gave this to me for anxiety, even though I said I didn't have anxiety. I think he thought this was the wonder drug. This was his pet drug that he gave to all of his patients, because I said I didn't want to take drugs at the start. They know what they're talking about, so that's in the back of my mind, and that influences me to take on board everything they say. And I'll just agree with things, even if I know that I don't agree with them. He had another patient who had, some back muscles degenerated or something. And then apparently this cured him. So I took it, didn't feel anything, got right up to the top dose. I'm taking 600 milligrams of this a day. That's as much as you can take. Couldn't tell the difference, quite honestly. Give me some drugs. It's at least I'll have a placebo effect. So I'm going to try and get off this drug soon. These things are never easy to get off. that's the story of my drugs. I'll tell you more stories about the other drugs later, and I will probably speak to you soon. Bye.